So the long-awaited opening game of World Cup qualifying with our new look U.S. men's national team with a roster full of players playing at the biggest clubs in the world has come and gone, and if you're anything like me, you were left frustrated, disappointing, scratching your head, wondering what just happened. What was that 90 minutes of soccer that we just saw, and why did it feel like it went by in like 10 minutes? We're going to get into all that and more on this episode of the Yank Report. What's up? My name is Sam. Welcome to the Yank Report, the show where we talk about the U.S. men's national team, and we are currently neck deep in World Cup qualifying. So this is a very exciting time with a lot of soccer news going on. We're also deep into the European season and the MLS season, so there's just so much soccer happening. Just like every single day there's a new story happening, so if you want to follow it all, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support the channel, please hit that like button. Let's start where we always start, with the lineup, because the lineup told us a bunch of interesting things, not only about how this game would go, but also about how Greg kind of sees this lineup playing out over the next 3 games in this World Cup qualifying window. So we had Matt Turner in goal, we had DeAndre Yedlin, Miles Robinson, Tim Ream, and Serginho Dest as the back 4. Our defensive midfielder was Tyler Adams. Our 2 attacking midfielders were Brennan Aronson and Weston McKennie. And our front 3 was Conrad De La Fuente on the left, Josh Sargent in the middle, and Gio Reyna out on the right wing. Now, the first thing that might jump out at you is Tim Ream starting in the back line. Tim Ream, of course, is one of U.S. Soccer Twitter's least favorite U.S. men's national team players. After the game, Greg Berhalter said that John Brooks was just not quite up for it after playing a long game in Germany and then a big transatlantic flight. He wanted to give him some rest, so I'm assuming that John Brooks is going to start the next 2 games. The next thing is Brennan Aronson started in the midfield, which was interesting. A lot of people wanted to see Gio Reyna in the midfield, myself included, after that game. But this was an opportunity to see Brennan Aronson in the midfield and see what he can do, and we'll kind of get into that more as the game goes on. Now, as far as El Salvador, they came out in a 4-4-2 diamond shape, which kind of caused some problems for the U.S. down the road. And let's get into the first really piece of action that I wrote down. That was 4 minutes in. The USA is getting behind at will. Reyna, Sargent, and Yedlin are all being played in behind. In this opening 8 minutes, the sequence was straight out of a U.S. men's national team training ground. It seemed like we were ripping them apart at will. We were recycling the ball. We were moving it around pretty well. And our intensity in the first 10 minutes was greater than that of El Salvador's. We were physically dominating the game, and it was really impressive to see. I thought in that opening few minutes sequence that the U.S. was just going to run over El Salvador just because of how fluid they were playing. All that led to a really nice chance at the 4-minute 30-second mark where Yedlin gets in behind. He plays it across into a dangerous area, and El Salvador clearance deflects off of Aronson towards goal but floats over the crossbar. I think the El Salvador keeper had it covered, but it was one of those moments where it was like, man, a little bit here or there, and maybe Brennan Aronson just steals one, and 5 minutes into the game, we're ahead. But it didn't quite happen that way. Let me interrupt for 1 second to tell you guys about the sponsor for today's video, OneFootball. OneFootball is the perfect app for any soccer fan out there. It gives you the up-to-date, up-to-the-minute news about your favorite teams and players and leagues and stuff like that. And it's fantastic if you're doing something like watching World Cup qualifiers, where maybe you're playing a team like El Salvador that maybe has a roster full of players that you're not familiar with. With OneFootball, you could just pull up the game, check out the roster, see who's who they play for, if you recognize any of them. If you come to like any of them, maybe like an Alex Roldan or somebody like that, you can click follow and follow their career, and now you know a little bit more about them. So if you want to download OneFootball, you can click the link in the description. By doing so, not only are you getting the latest up-to-the-second news and information about your favorite teams and players and leagues, but you're also supporting a company that supports content creators like me. So thank you to OneFootball, and let's get back to the video. A little bit later, 7 minutes in, Conrad De La Fuente earns a free kick in a dangerous area. Now, Conrad De La Fuente and Serginho Dest, that was like a recurring theme in the first part of this game where, they're 2 guys who like to dribble in the attacking third. And it seemed like whenever they would get into dangerous areas, both of them would take turns just dribbling it around without really creating any danger. In this particular moment, Conrad dribbled into an area where he actually got fouled, but it was dangerous with him just dribbling around like that, and could have easily have lost the ball and created a counterattack for El Salvador, which we did see happen a few times where either Dest or Conrad gave up the ball. Now, that would be a criticism of Berhalter, having Dest line up as that left back with Conrad ahead of him. Maybe if Reyna is ahead of Dest, maybe that works a little bit more fluidly. But we also saw later in the game, whenever Anthony Robinson came in and actually did provide an overlap that Serginho Dest was just not doing. He was not overlapping Conrad or Reyna at any point in the game. That overlap just created a lot more space and opened things up for the winger who at that time was Gio Reyna. So that is a systemic issue that we kind of saw bubble up. And honestly, we didn't really see a lot from Serginho Dest in the attacking third that really benefited or showed off like why Dest would be playing on that left back position. But in the 7th minute, Conrad earns a free kick with all of his dribbling around, and that free kick turns into probably the best chance for either side, the best chance in the game for the U.S., clearly. At 8:05, Gio Reyna plays in a beautiful free kick that finds the forehead of Miles Robinson, who is all alone at the top of the 6-yard box, but Robinson puts it over the bar. Now, we know Miles Robinson had some nice headers that saved the U.S. in the Gold Cup. We know that Miles Robinson is a dangerous header of the ball, and it just felt like whenever I saw that soaring through the air, it was like, okay, this is it. This is how qualifying is going to go for the U.S. now with this super squad of players. We're just that much better than everybody else. We got guys like Gio Reyna who can float it in and a guy like Miles Robinson who can put it away. 1-0 U.S. This is going to be a pleasure cruise. Let's sit back and relax, and away we go. But that's not how it went. Miles Robinson put the ball over the bar. And I will say this as well. We had a lot of criticism of Sebastian Leget's free kicks in the Gold Cup, and people were crying out for other people to take the free kicks. In this situation, Gio Reyna had a free kick, and it was a perfect delivery. It was beautiful. However, for the rest of the game, whenever Gio had free kicks, he had another one in a similar area, and he had some corner kicks. His delivery was not good. Outside of this one majestic, picture-perfect ball, Gio Reyna's deliveries off of free kicks was not good. I don't know if that's just something that's going to be this game, and maybe they get better as the games go on, but I'm expecting a little bit more from the delivery from Gio Reyna in the future. So after that 8-minute onslaught where the U.S. just dominated and had that beautiful chance by Miles Robinson go over the bar, it seemed like a switch flipped, not just in the El Salvador side, but also in the U.S. side. I think that the U.S. was playing on a lot of adrenaline early on, and then once that adrenaline kind of dumped, we saw a different U.S. squad and a different El Salvadorian squad. They started winning the ball more. They started fighting for those 50-50s. They started winning those second balls. Their intensity just ramped up tremendously. And suddenly, whenever in the first 8 minutes, it was El Salvadorian players hitting the ground and the U.S. players winning all the battles. Suddenly that flipped, and now it's the U.S. players hitting the ground and the El Salvadorian players winning the battles. At the 11:13 mark, El Salvador have a long switch from a free kick that finds an El Salvador winger attacking Serginho Dest. Dest is beaten off the first touch, forcing Tim Ream to cover. El Salvador wins a corner. And this is the first instance where we see a trend that I think happens so often that it was really the game plan for El Salvador, where they were really pinging balls, attacking the wings, attacking the fullbacks of the U.S. There were instances where they attacked DeAndre Yedlin, and there were instances where they attacked Serginho Dest. Now, one thing I will say is that while DeAndre Yedlin lost his fair share of duels, I'm not sure Serginho Dest won a duel. And whenever he lost, he not only lost the duels, but he lost in a way that took himself out of the play. And he was just a traffic cone for the U.S. in that left back spot. It was incredibly disappointing to see for a player with such pedigree that's playing at such a high-level club to just lack the ability to even put forth the minimum effort required to defend, because so much of defending is effort and will and wanting to win that fight. And I'm not sure at any point tonight I saw a Serginho Dest who wanted to win a fight. And I think that speaks to a lot of what CONCACAF Away is all about. I know people have kind of like said experience isn't important, that, the U.S. is such better players than these guys, that we should just be able to roll in and do it. If a guy like Gio Reyna is playing in the Bundesliga week in, week out, he won't be intimidated by an El Salvadorian crowd. And I think that that's seeing things from a fan perspective, where we're in our living rooms watching the TV. And I think it's an entirely different thing if you're actually there in that field, in that stadium, surrounded by those players and feeling those emotions. Because whenever you're in a CONCACAF Away game, it's not just the 90 minutes on the field. It's the entire time that you're in that country. Those fans, that opposition, is doing everything they can to make you feel uncomfortable, to make you feel like you're in danger. And that's something that's been echoed by so many U.S. men's national team players over the years. And we saw that manifest itself in this game, where players that play at an extremely high level and are capable of doing incredible technical things just had the most mindless giveaways and the most mindless, poor dribbles, poor touches, just poor plays. And it was clear that these players were affected by their environment. This was their first CONCACAF Away game, not just for the guys like Conrad De La Fuente and Gio Reyna, but also for the guys who were the veterans on this team. Guys like Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams. They've never played in a CONCACAF Away game. And that intensity and that feeling of just being uncomfortable, just not wanting to be there, wanting to quit. That's what it's all about, man. That's what they want to do to you down in these CONCACAF Away games. They know that they can't play with the U.S. straight up, so they're going to do everything they can to put you off their game. They're going to make you play on a field where the ball bounces every 3 yards, and it's tough to play even the most simple passes, much less really intricate passing games. And they're going to fight you for every blade of grass. And the fans are going to make you feel just like the worst game experience you've ever had. It's not like playing it at Old Trafford in the Champions League, where even the away side has a really nice locker room, and then they come out and they sit on the sidelines in these chairs sponsored by Ferrari, and they're plush and they've got nice water bottles and everything. It ain't like that. Whenever you're down in El Salvador, you're sitting on wood and concrete everywhere you go. You're sitting in the worst locker room you've probably been in since you were, a youth player. And you're in an environment where there's nothing but, a chain link fence and like 1 or 2 security guards separating you from thousands of people in the stands who are saying the worst things they can possibly think of to you. Maybe you speak Spanish, maybe you don't, but even if you don't, you understand the emotion and the intent of what these guys are trying to say. So put yourself in the shoes of a guy like Serginho Dest or a guy like, Gio Reyna. These guys who are like 20 years old, 18, 19, 20 years old, that are suddenly in this situation and having to play soccer in that environment for the first times in their lives. Of course it's going to be weird and different, and you got to reach deep down inside and kind of figure that out. So, yeah, I think we saw that manifest itself for pretty much every player on the field across the board, especially the guys experiencing it for the first time. So from about the 10th minute on, I just have marked down a lot of instances where El Salvador really targeted the flanks of the U.S. In the 13th minute, after a scrum in midfield, an El Salvadorian defender clears to his right flank, and Tim Ream is forced to clear. In the 14th minute, El Salvador play a big switch to the right, and El Salvadorian cross is overhit. In the 15th minute, they attempt a ball to the left flank. This time, DeAndre Yedlin is there and tackles, but he concedes a corner. And it's just a bunch of sequences where El Salvador plays it long, they win the ball back, they get it in midfield, and they attempt a big switch and really target the U.S. Fullbacks. Around the 15 to 20 minute mark, you really see that that loss of intensity for the U.S. playing out on the field, and you're seeing the U.S. lose pretty much every 50-50 ball, every second ball. El Salvador is just beating them to everything. Incredibly disappointing for a U.S. fan to see. And then on the flip side, the U.S., whenever they have the ball, they are frantic, they are sloppy, they are either taking too long or rushing things, and things are just not right. Nothing's clicking, and we're struggling to really find a footing in the game. In the 29th minute, El Salvador gets probably their best chance in open play, where an El Salvador forward forward makes a run in behind, splitting both Ream and Dest. The El Salvador forward first times a square ball into the path of an oncoming El Salvador attacker, and the El Salvador attacker attempts an outside the boot shot that goes wide. It's the best sequence of the game for El Salvador. So that shows a couple things. Number one, that was a low percentage chance that El Salvador got there. If they would have put that away, that would have been a really, really impressive goal. And it showed that, despite the U.S. just not being able to assert themselves in possession and not being able to assert themselves in the final third, still defensively, it was still a solid performance from the U.S. Even though some players got beat here and there, whenever it came to El Salvador actually getting quality chances, they were not really able to do that. The U.S. had the majority of the quality chances, and that showed up in the XG, where El Salvador had a very low XG. I forget exactly what it was, depending on who you looked at. So in spite of coming away with a really frustrating and disappointing performance, especially on the offensive side of things, I do take away from that this U.S. squad were able to win the Nations League and were able to win the Gold Cup because of just being really strong defensively and really shutting things down and not letting opponents get clear shots on goal. And that has continued through to this game. And I think if the U.S. does want to get results in CONCACAF away in the future, it's all about limiting the opportunities for the opposition and then making things happen in the attacking side. Because, even though we were discombobulated, discoherent, disjointed in the attack, we still had the quality on the field to produce enough chances to score a goal, and we just lacked the finish to do so. If we play this game 10 times, maybe some of those chances and some of those half chances actually do go in. But on the other side of things, just being strong defensively and limiting opportunities for the opposition is a great formula for winning not just CONCACAF away games, but games in general. So in the 30th minute, Serginho Dest has a really tough moment here where off of a loose first touch from Serginho, he has a 50-50 ball between himself and an El Salvadorian attacker. He goes into that 50-50 and just gets destroyed, and that leads to an El Salvadorian counter where they have the whole right flank open to them. A poor cross ends the break, but it's another instance where Serginho Dest goes into a 50-50, and not only does he lose the battle, but he takes himself completely out the play and leaves the whole flank exposed. I've seen a lot of people on social media say Serginho Dest was played out of position, and he's better as a right back, and I'll give some credence to that, especially whenever you look at how he could overlap on the right side versus the left side and some of that stuff going on. But as far as effort and as far as overall defending, I mean, this was just a poor effort from Serginho Dest. This was not the first instance where he just got outplayed by USL players from El Salvador, and it won't be the last, but this was a really disappointing effort from Serginho in the 30th minute. Not to compound the problems for the U.S. fullbacks, in the 32nd minute, Turner concedes a corner off of a really bad touch. There's been so much made about Zach Turner's problems with playing the ball at his feet. It kind of manifested itself here where he had a back pass from DeAndre Yedlin, let it go out of bounds. Off of the corner, El Salvador play a short corner. Yedlin gets beat 1v1 against Alex Roldan, who played the game of his life. He was incredibly impressive. Alex Roldan's shot/cross, not really sure what it was, goes over the bar. Nice moment from El Salvador, nice opportunity there. Low percentage shot, but it was a shot nonetheless. Between the 30th and 40th minute, I wrote down a few things. Aronson's getting bodied in midfield. Physically, he just wasn't up for it in the midfield with the intensity in this game. Weston McKennie is losing headers, which, if you know anything about Weston McKennie, that's crazy. He's an elite header of the ball, and he's just getting beat right and left by El Salvadorian midfielders. Gio Reyna's hitting bad crosses. Players are dribbling directly into El Salvadorians. The team is just frazzled. They look like they're in an environment that they don't want to be in, and they are playing like it. In the 43rd minute, Aronson wins a free kick. Gio Reyna plays a ball to the near post, finding Josh Sargent. Sargent attempts to chest the ball down and hit a first-time volley. He flubs the shot, and the ball goes harmlessly out of bounds. This was a moment where Josh Sargent attempted something spectacular. It looked like that very famous Thierry Henry goal where he chested it down and volleyed it in. Josh kind of gets it all wrong and ends up falling face down. Josh is another one of those players where He came out the gates pretty nice in the first 5 minutes, but after that just kind of fell off. His hold-up play was not very strong, and more important than that, he didn't seem to be in the spaces where his teammates needed him to be on more than one occasion. Stylistically, he didn't really seem to fit in the squad in a way that really made the offense work, and I think we really saw that whenever Jordan Pefok came in the second half, and then suddenly things just started clicking a little bit better, and the whole offense was able to breathe a little bit more. But Josh Sargent, man, there is no Giassi Zardes in this camp to come in and save the U.S. men's national team again. We have Josh Sargent, we have Jordan Pefok, and then we have the very young Ricardo Pepi. I'm not sure how much time Pepi's going to get in this game. I'm hoping he gets some opportunities, but I'm really doubting he's going to start specifically against Canada in the next game. The striker woes for the U.S. men's national team continue, and Josh Sargent once again did not provide that game that makes U.S. men's national team fans feel like he is the guy for our future. At halftime, we were all hoping that the U.S. would come out a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more assertive, come out on the front foot, and they actually did. They actually did for the first few minutes, and speaking of DeAndre Yedlin, he puts in a nice tackle at midfield to win the ball back for the U.S. Sargent is able to run at the El Salvador backline with Conrad overlapping. Now, unfortunately, it all falls apart from there as Sargent sort of hesitates to play in Conrad. The ball comes in late, allowing the El Salvador defense to recover. Another one of those moments where the U.S. had something really nice. They were running at the defense. They had numbers, and they just kind of flubbed it. They lost composure. It just all fell apart. Now, not to be outdone, a few minutes later in the 49th minute, the U.S. wins the ball, and Conrad this time is running at the defense on a counter with Sargent on the outside in more or less the exact same position. Rain is actually overlapping on the other side, but he actually doesn't get involved with this play because Conrad decides to play in Sargent, but instead of playing it into space, he plays it to his feet. Sargent kind of has to hesitate to wait on it. It allows the El Salvadorian defender to make a play on it, and once again, another opportunity goes awry. Just mirror images back to back. Opportunities where the U.S. had what they want. They're running at that El Salvador goal. They've got numbers, and they just lack that composure to make the correct pass to make it happen to trouble the El Salvador defense. In neither of these sequences, we get a shot on goal. Really disappointing. In the 52nd minute, we find Sergiño Dest's most shambolic moment of the match. The moment of the match where I think it solidified to Greg Berhalter that he was going to have to pull him, and boy, this was ugly to see. The El Salvadorian keeper punts the ball to an El Salvadorian forward battling Dest. The El Salvadorian player wins the ball because Sergiño Dest just didn't win any 50-50 balls in this game. Following that, he flicks the ball past Dest and beats him for pace down the sideline. He then bodies Dest shoulder to shoulder, and Dest goes down, leaving a completely exposed left flank for the U.S. Fortunately for the U.S., the El Salvadorian player just botched the cross, and the ball goes harmlessly out of bounds. But boy, once again, that effort from Sergiño Dest, not only does he not win the first ball, but he also allows himself to get beat by just a flick and a run. I mean, these are USL players he's up against. He's a Barcelona defender. That's not the effort that you want to see from him. And then to top it all off, he gets bodied and he gets knocked out of the play. Just really disappointing for Sergiño Dest in this moment in particular, but throughout the game. In the 56th minute, something happens that we have been crying out for most of the game. Gio Reyna and Conrad de la Fuente switch wings. Gio gets out on that left wing and is able to create a lot more than he was on the right side. In the 63rd minute, the U.S. gets some much-needed reinforcements. Jordan Pefok comes in for Josh Sargent. Kellen Acosta comes in for Conrad de la Fuente. And Anthony Robinson comes in for Sergiño Dest. In the 65th minute, Gio Reyna attacks the middle of the field after a give and go with Pefok. One of Gio's best moments of the game. Gio plays Aronson through. Aronson is a bit wrong-footed and missteps, and it allows the El Salvadorian defender to get back into the play and clean it up. Really nice moment from Gio Reyna, and for the folks out there who want to see Gio Reyna line up in the middle, this was probably their best evidence of how that could potentially play out. Because unlike Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna is a big-bodied boy, and he's pretty adept at being physical and being nasty, and and making his presence felt. In the 66th minute, I marked down that the addition of Kellyn Acosta and Pefok has changed the game for the U.S. I think it also had to do with El Salvador just running out of gas. Of course, they don't have the depth that the U.S. has to make all these substitutions. As they're making substitutions, their quality's going down. The U.S. is going up. But you could definitely see the physicality from the U.S. change. In the 71st minute, Gio Reyna has another really nice moment where he dribbles an El Salvadorian defender in the box to get to the inline. He then fakes a cross at the inline to sit down an El Salvadorian defender and chips the ball into the box in the path of the man who you would most want him to chip a ball in the box into, that elite header of the ball, Weston McKennie. Weston McKennie comes flying into the ball, just in the middle of the goal, splitting two defenders. The ball comes in nice and gingerly, nice where he wants it, and he puts it 3 yards wide. I mean, can't believe that. If you would have told me before the game, Weston McKennie has a header in the 6-yard box between two defenders, I mean, this is the moment that you want as a U.S. men's national team fan, and it goes wide. Very disappointed. El Salvador is clearly gassed at this point, so the U.S. is just kind of having their way with them. The only thing that is keeping El Salvador in the game is the lack of the ability for the U.S. to make simple passes and turn and receive balls. In the 75th minute, Jordan Pefok wins the ball in the midfield and plays in Weston McKennie / Brendan Aronson. It was right between both of them. They're both making the same run in the right channel. Weston puts in a cross to the back post into an oncoming Kellyn Acosta. Acosta makes contact, and in this moment, I thought that the U.S. had stolen it. I thought that Kellyn Acosta rescued us from the depths and that we were going to win this game, but the keeper's able to dive to his right and save the ball. In the 77th minute, Christian Roldan comes in for Brendan Aronson, and Sebastian Lletget goes in for DeAndre Yedlin. Acosta moves to right back, which is interesting to see Greg kind of use him as a utility player. In the 79th minute, off of a throw-in in El Salvador's half, Reyna wins the ball in the box and plays it back to Roldan, who chips it into Pefok. Pefok rises up for a header, but sends it over the bar. And that's whenever it kind of set in for me that this isn't gonna happen. If we were gonna win this game, one of those balls was gonna go in, and none of them did. And it's disappointing, and that's kind of where the life left my body right there. Nice seeing Pefok getting on the end of that. We didn't see Josh Sargent really do anything dangerous in the box, create any opportunities like that. Pefok did, despite only coming in for a few minutes, so that was nice to see. Not only that, but Pefok also held the ball up really well and created some other opportunities throughout the game, so good game from him. Now, that was up against a very tired El Salvadorian defense, so maybe he can't do that over 90 minutes. Maybe he's best in that super sub role. We'll see how it plays out moving forward. In the 87th minute, Pefok wins another ball in the air to spring Christian Roldan in for the Roldan Bowl, the moment we've all been waiting for, Christian Roldan versus Alex Roldan. It was a weird situation, a weird sequence where the sideline ref put his flag up pretty much immediately for a Christian Roldan foul, but the head official just let him kind of fight it out for another 15 yards or so, like two brothers in the backyard. Eventually, he blows it dead. Speaking of the official had a pretty solid game. Nothing to complain about there. We didn't see much CONCACAF from the El Salvadorians. They pretty much played it straight up. All we really saw was just an incredibly intimidating crowd and field. The field was not great, and it was just credit to the El Salvadorian crowd for just making that loud and a tough place to play. So the game ends 0-0. It was a frustrating performance from the U.S. There were few good games out there and a bunch of bad games to go around. Now, in this moment, whenever the U.S. has a not-so-great performance, so often we want to assign blame to one player. We want to create a scapegoat. It's somebody's fault. It's somebody else's fault. And I think the one of the reasons why this has been such a weird 24 hours for U.S. men's national team fans is so often that person that we're assigning blame to is going to be like a MLS player, an older MLS player that nobody likes, or something like that, or like a gatekeeper player that nobody likes. And in this instance, the guys like Tim Ream and DeAndre Yedlin actually had pretty decent performances. Miles Robinson, another player, had a pretty decent performance. The guys who played badly in this game, the guys who were poor, were the young European superstar players, the players that are supposed to be the ones that aren't poor. You know, Brennan Aronson just getting bodied in the midfield. Weston McKennie just playing a lot of poor passes and being kind of sloppy in a lot of moments where he needed to have more composure. Josh Sargent just not creating the opportunities, not holding the ball up. Serginho Dest just, boy, having a real shambolic, just a terrible night altogether. However, that being said, the other side of the coin is, despite all that, despite it being an incredibly disappointing night for so many players, and despite the U.S. Just failing to be able to possess the ball and really create a ton of opportunities, they did create opportunities. They did create 4 or 5 moments in those games. I'd say 3 chances that were really quality. One in particular, that maybe 2, that Miles Robinson opportunity and that Weston McKennie opportunity were gilt-edged. They created enough opportunities to win this game, and they failed to do so. So in that regard, I come away feeling very frustrated because it was so within our grasp. Despite the players playing their first away game in CONCACAF and clearly just being intimidated by the crowd and not themselves, you know, despite things not going our way, the bumpy pitch causing the ball to bounce every few seconds, Serginho Dest just having a tough night defensively, despite Christian Pulisic being out, despite Tim Weah being out, you know, all of these things, John Brooks not being in the game, the U.S. still did what they had to do and created those opportunities in order to win the game, and they just failed to take them. That's something moving forward that I think, if you play this game out in the law of averages, you know, there's 14 qualifiers. Hopefully the U.S. moving forward will be able to change that. Now, a lot of people will say coming away with 1 point in a CONCACAF game is nothing to be disappointed in. And to a certain extent, I agree. I think that we should be happy, especially in the context of the remaining 14 games. You know, this is a long story we got ahead, and this is only the first chapter. So maybe this 1 point will be decisive for the U.S. or whatever. It'll prove to be a non-story. It'll prove to be the catalyst that catapulted the team to dominating the rest of the way. However, it should be said that with the quality that we have on the field, and even despite just having really terrible performances across the board from so many of these really special players, they were still able to find these little moments where Gio Reyna just sits down a defender on the inline and chips a ball into Weston McKennie, and he's just not able to get it done. So in that regard, I am frustrated because those 3 points were on the table, and all we had to do was grab it, and we just failed to do so. We just didn't have that composure necessary in those moments to get it done. Now, moving forward, we do have Canada coming up in a few days. Canada actually tied their game 1-1 with Honduras, so they didn't get the 3 points they were looking for. So maybe that kind of changes things for Canada, where they want to get a point away to the U.S., or it changes it in the fact that they're looking at their final game against El Salvador, where they really want to win that game. So maybe they're going to rest players against the U.S. in order to go all in on that game. I'm not sure, but either way, the U.S. is going to have a fully rested Christian Pulisic, a fully rested John Brooks, and an opportunity to go out and get 3 points at home, be sitting with 4 points heading into Honduras, and that'll change things. You know, if we come away with this in this window with 7 points, I think that we're still in a really great spot to qualify and feel good about our chances moving forward, and just still have all of our goals ahead of us. It's a tough morning after that game, staying up late with all that anticipation, just we've been waiting for this moment for so long, and then to see it play out on the field in such a disappointing way, it's a kick in the pants. But, you know, as I said before, this is the first chapter in a long story, so hopefully there's better days ahead. But I want to know what your thoughts are from the game. What did you think? Were you happy with the 1 point? Were you really disappointed in the way we played? What do you think were the reasons that made it all go wrong for us? And what do you want to see moving forward? As always, if you speak Spanish, leave your comment in Spanish. Así que puedo practicar mi español. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do so is to like the video, subscribe if you haven't. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.